what is happening in Yemen? Give us that top line summary of what's happening now.
Yeah, the developments in Yemen are interesting. So the Biden administration, as we discussed before, mainly targeted weapons systems things for the Yemeni in order to try to get the Yemenis to stop attacking international shipping. It didn't work. The Trump administration has taken a different tact. It's not only targeting weapons systems, it's going after individuals. And just today, the U.S. Central Command, which is directing the strikes, targeted a fuel depot that is being used to provide, that is to basically to fuel the Yemeni military. So this is, but also targeting the leadership. I've seen reports Yemeni generals and colonels are starting to be identified as being killed. We didn't see this under the Biden campaign. We are seeing this under the Trump campaign. Whether it'll work, that'll remains to be seen. I think that the Houthis aren't just a small terrorist organization. It runs a government. It runs a military. So it's a terrorist government. And so there's a lot of work to be done, but you have a far better chance to get them to stop attacks on international shipping than you did under the Biden administration's, if you could call it a strategy of just targeting weapons systems that can be and were being replaced by both the Yemenis who manufacture them and the Iranians who supplied them.
Mm-hmm. So what is the, I suppose, what is the downside here, or potential downside scenario for weakening the Houthis to the degree where, I don't know how you want to refer to them, the established Yemeni government, or certainly the government that's been supported by the Saudis and others, what is the downside scenario here if that government, is able to, in a direct offensive, take back territory?
So I think a downside is you could see a Libya or a Syrian situation where you have a fractured Yemeni state, which you really essentially do now. But look, the Yemeni government that we support is really very toothless. One of my concerns is that Al Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula can reassert control, as it has done several times in the past, or that you get a situation where Al Qaeda is all of a sudden viewed as moderate, just as it is in Syria, where you have a specially designated global terrorist who leads a foreign terrorist organization who's become president and runs the government of Syria. That you could have a situation like that. The problem is that I see with our foreign policy, and this is not a left or a right or a Republican or Democrat issue, but it's a Washington issue, is that we're always looking for someone to work with. And in this places like Yemen and Libya and Syria, there are really very few good actors, or the ones that are good tend to be powerless or maintain very little power. So my concern is that if we replace the Houthis, or if we depose the Houthis, it could be replaced with another bad actor, and we could be convinced that they're good actors. That's exactly what happened in Syria. We exchanged one bad leader, Assad, and replaced them with a terrorist. And so, is the situation better in Syria today than it was a year ago? I'd argue it's just as bad. It's just a different kind of situation.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent point. That I know we've got plenty of case studies, recent case studies, in how the U.S. tends to do what you're describing, looking for that partner, right? That and we, in part, it's because the Americans, no matter what the administration is, I agree with this is an operational issue. This is not a partisan issue. But we tend to, as Americans, mirror our values on others, right? And so then we imagine, sort of like with Afghanistan, somehow, yes, the Soviets had to, turn tail and run out of Afghanistan, but because we're bringing democracy, right, they're going to love us and it's all going to work out well, right? Well, that's not the case, because most often these countries don't know what it is that we're trying to sell, and they don't understand it and much less want it. So I take your point, and that's kind of a concern here. Look, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be degrading the Houthis, right? They're in part funded, trained, supported, resourced by the Iranian regime, and they've also obviously been playing havoc on international shipping. but I think you have to be pragmatic and say, well, what comes in behind it?
I completely agree. We absolutely should be taking out the Houthis. We should do everything. We just need to be, as you said, be pragmatic. Your case of Afghanistan is perfect, right? When the Taliban, President Trump negotiated the Doha agreement with them that President Biden used to withdraw, and we're talking to the Taliban now. We took off the bounty, the $10 million bounty for Sirajudin Haqqani, one of the most horrible terrorists on this planet, who's responsible for the deaths and wounding of thousands of Americans in Afghanistan, tens of thousands of Afghans. He's with ties to Al Qaeda. So we may be good at deposing a regime. We just don't seem to have foresight. And you're absolutely correct. We project our values upon people that really are our enemies. The Taliban aren't our friend. Ahmed al-Shara in Syria and Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which he runs, they are not an ally, and yet we're treating them like one. And I hope we don't, you know, have follow similar steps in Yemen as we've done in Libya, right? Another basket case study of our failed follow through policy. And I just hope we don't do that again.
Yeah, nobody wants to talk about Libya. Nobody likes talking about Libya because it's such a hot mess, right? But there you've got what? You've got over 130 tribal elements there, and you were trying to somehow imagine you were going to create a unified federal state, and it's a disaster at this stage of the game. I love your reference to Shara in Syria, and I loved the fact that as he and the rebels rode into town, and Assad was getting on the bus to go to Moscow. By the way, nobody ever talks about the fact that Assad's what is he doing in Moscow? Is he like working as a barista? What is so? Anyway, the point being is the next day, basically almost the next day, Shara dumped his camos, and he put on a suit and an expensive watch because he understands how to play the West mindset, right? To some degree, if I look like what they want me to look like, they're going to layer on their expectations and their hopes onto this image. And I think he's not doing a bad job of playing the West right now to some degree. Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and leave a comment, a really positive, nice, and kind comment. That would be appreciated. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our daily updates.